Someone cuts you off in traffic. For half a second, something old and reptilian floods your chest. Your jaw tightens. Your hands grip the wheel a little harder than they need to. And then, almost without deciding to, you let it go. That tiny act, that swallowed flash of rage, is not a small thing. It is the end product of one of the strangest and most violent processes in the history of life on Earth. Somewhere in your skull, there is a switch that almost no other primate has. A switch that lets you feel fury and not act on it. And the story of how that switch got installed in you is not a peaceful one. You've probably heard that humans became human in a single moment. A spark of language, a flash of insight around a campfire. That story is comforting. It is also wrong. There was no single moment when your ancestors decided to stop being animals. What actually happened took hundreds of thousands of years. It was paid for in blood. And the strangest part is this. The very thing that makes you capable of love and trust is, biologically speaking, the same thing that makes a dog tame instead of feral. You weren't enlightened into humanity. In a very real sense, you were bred into it by your own ancestors on purpose. Start with the body, because the body keeps the receipts. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham spent decades comparing humans to other primates and noticed something odd. Humans carry a strange bundle of traits that show up again and again in domesticated animals. Smaller faces, less robust skulls, reduced size differences between males and females. Dogs have these traits compared to wolves. Cattle have them compared to their wild ancestors. And modern humans have them compared to earlier members of our own family tree. Wrangham calls this self-domestication. Nobody stood outside the species selectively breeding humans like a farmer breeds livestock. Instead, humans did it to themselves, generation after generation, by quietly selecting against one specific trait, reactive aggression. Because aggression isn't one thing, researchers split it into two very different categories. Reactive aggression is hot, the shove in a bar fight, the screamed insult, the snap decision to throw a punch because someone humiliated you. Proactive aggression is cold, planned, controlled, carried out with almost no emotion. The calculated betrayal, the ambush, the decision made calmly in advance. Here is the paradox sitting at the center of your own species. Compared to chimpanzees, you are shockingly low in reactive aggression. You can sit next to a stranger who insults you and do nothing. But compared to almost anything else alive, you are terrifyingly high in proactive aggression. You are, at the same time, one of the calmest primates in daily life and the most dangerous planner of violence the planet has ever produced. How does one species end up holding both of those things at once? Bonobos offer a clue. They look almost exactly like chimpanzees from a distance, but up close, something is different. Smaller skulls, shorter canines, patches of depigmented skin. They spend their days playing and grooming, instead of patrolling borders and fighting. Primatologist Brian Hare proposed that bonobos essentially domesticated themselves. In their patch of forest, food was abundant enough that fighting for it wasn't worth it. So females formed alliances and pushed the most violent males to the margins, before those males could pass their temper to the next generation. Over time, the population simply got friendlier, and friendliness dragged a whole suite of physical changes along with it that nobody was selecting for directly. Tameness, it turns out, never travels alone. So what caused that same shift in your ancestors? Bonobos got lucky with their environment. Early humans didn't. Something else had to be doing the selecting. That something has a name, and it is considerably less gentle than abundant fruit. The execution hypothesis. Christopher Boehm spent his career studying mobile hunter-gatherer societies, the closest living approximation we have to how humans lived for most of their history. He noticed something almost every one of these societies shared: a fierce commitment to equality. No permanent chiefs. No one allowed to bully or dominate for long. And when Boehm traced the mechanism that enforced this equality, he found it wasn't gentle peer pressure. Surveying documented societies across 6 world regions, he found that close to half had recorded instances of a group executing its own member, specifically the bullies, the hoarders, the men who tried to seize too much power. Not outsiders, their own people killed by consensus. If you were a hot-tempered, domineering man in one of these bands 20,000 years ago, your aggression didn't make you the alpha the way it might in a chimpanzee troop. It made you a liability. The group would talk quietly among themselves, agree without ever holding a formal vote, and then act together, calmly and deliberately, to remove you before you could do it again. Generation after generation, this quiet, lethal violence pulled hot tempers out of the gene pool and left something else standing. People capable of self-control. People the group could trust not to explode the moment they got a sliver of power. Notice what's hiding inside that sentence. The thing that turned your ancestors into a gentler, more cooperative species wasn't gentleness. It was lethal, premeditated, group-coordinated violence, aimed again and again at their own most aggressive members. Calm wasn't a gift evolution handed you. Calm was carved out by force, one execution at a time. And once a species could organize that kind of cold, coordinated action, something else quietly became possible. Something that had nothing to do with violence at all. Trust, on a scale no other primate has ever managed. Around 100,000 years ago, in a cave on the southern coast of what is now South Africa, someone sat down with a chunk of red ochre and carved a deliberate, repeating geometric pattern into its surface. Archaeologist Christopher Henshelwood uncovered dozens of these engraved pieces at Blumboss Cave. Consistent, repeated, intentional designs. They carried meaning. And meaning is useless if you can't trust the people around you to read it the same way you do. Think about what a shared symbol actually requires. It's worthless if you expect the person next to you to attack the moment your guard drops. You cannot build a language, a ritual, a law, with someone you have to watch out of the corner of your eye every second. Symbolic culture could only take root once groups had already quieted their own internal violence enough to cooperate on something as fragile and biologically pointless as a design scratched into rock. So when did humans actually stop being animals? They didn't, not in the way the question assumes. Your ancestors became a new kind of animal. One so committed to policing its own impulses that it was willing to kill its most aggressive members to keep the group survivable. You inherited that machinery whole, intact, still running quietly in the background of your daily life. It's why a workplace bully eventually finds themselves frozen out by colleagues who never held a single meeting about it. It's why someone who tries to dominate a friend group too openly discovers that invitations stop arriving, that the group has quietly closed ranks. No vote gets taken. No announcement gets made. It just happens. The same coordinated, consensus-driven withdrawal that once ended in spears, now ending in silence and unanswered messages. You do this without thinking about it. The same way your hands relaxed on that steering wheel without you ever consciously deciding to relax them. You are not suppressing the animal inside you. You are the animal. The one that finally finished its longest, strangest, and bloodiest project. Learning. generation after generation, to domesticate itself.